All right, everyone. I welcome us all to the last lesson of our tutorial, Microsoft Excel Made Simple. To wrap it up, we will be looking at pivot table for data analysis. We'll see how to create pivot table, how to reorganize the table, how to develop business dashboard with the pivot table, and of course, pivot analysis and reports. So let's go right into it. To carry out this exercise, please download your exercise 13 file, as the data in it is what we will be using in the course of this exercise. And as we all know, we should be hands-on so that we can have a better understanding of the process and how the system works, so that it will be easy for us to replicate when needed. So I've already downloaded my own file, exercise 13 pivot table. Now, this is the data. As you can see, we have a very large data that covers different aspects of employee and also the business. Now, the whole principle behind pivot table is extracting sets of data from a bigger chunk, more like a database table, and extracting the data we need to provide an answer to a question that we have or a request from the management or from a superior manager. So in order to generate the reports, we simply go to the database that has all the information stored. Then we extract the information that we need as a form of a pivot table, which we can then use to prepare our report and to make our presentation. So this is a large data which we can call a database. For an example, we simply click on a cell inside the data set. Then we click on Insert menu. Now, once we click on Insert menu, we move to our left-hand side. We have Pivot Table. We have Recommended Pivot Table. Let's look at Pivot Table. If we click on the drop-down list, we have two options, which is from table range, that is from the active table that we have, or from an external data source. So this allows us to go and obtain the information from an external data source, either a website, a portal, or another form of database, and then we bring the information from there to prepare our pivot table. So we are dealing with from range. So we want it from table range. Once we click on that, we have a dialog box will pop up. The dialog box is entitled Pivot Table from Table or Range. So select the table or range. So the table or range is table 1. That's what we want. Now choose where you want the pivot table to be placed. Do we want it in a new worksheet, which is preferably for a much more neat and presentable work, or an existing worksheet which is on this particular worksheet, which may be rough, as we know. And then we have another option to choose whether you want to analyze multiple tables, in which case we have to add this data to the data model. So let's start with the option New Worksheet. So we say OK. So once you click on OK, a new worksheet is created as an extract from the database. Now the table is blank. We have this shadow which represents the pivot table that we want to create. Now if we go to the right hand side, we will see the pivot table field. Now here we have all the column headings for our data table or our data set. All the column headings will all be here. And then under it, we have the ability to switch between tables, between columns, to rearrange the set of our pivot table to the way we want it to be. Now let's look at the question that we have in here. We are okay. Let's look at sheet 1. We have a question. We are to extract a pivot table for total quantity sold by state. Total quantity sold by state, which means that we need states and then we need quantity. Now, pivot table will help us to sum up the sales in each quantity. That means that if a state is Lagos, it will sum up all the states from smaller locations to become one as a total sum for Lagos for the period in question. So we have two fields to select. First, we have the state column. So let's look for state. Good. This is state. Once you select the column, you will see that the column will appear, the state, and then quantity sold. We need quantity sold. Let's scroll down. Okay, you have it here. Quantity supplied, yes. It. So there we have it. So the question has been answered as simple as possible. So we have the sum of quantity supplied by state. So this could be a simple management question. Oh, the management needs the total sales made or the total revenue generated from each state for a particular period. So we can simply use this to generate it. And we can now use this to create a pivot chart by selecting the table. Once the table is selected, we can insert. We'll come to our chart. We can select the type of chart that we want. Okay, let's go with this. We can drag it by the side to represent the data. So this is the data from our pivot table, and this is a chart representation of this data. So we have the states, and then we have the revenue generated by each state. So we can of course name this as we have learned in the previous tutorial on how to manipulate Microsoft Excel charts. So this is sales by state. Yes, that's what this is. Sales by state. So that is our heading. That is how we do that in its simplest form. Let's answer the other question. The other question is to generate a pivot table for total quantity remaining by state. So we still need two variables. We still need the total quantity and we still need the state. So let's go back to our data, click in it, go to our insert, pivot table, from table range, click on OK. All right. So we need our state and quantity remaining. So let's go down to we have our state. There is it, state. Then we'll look for our quantity remaining. Quantity remaining. Here we have it, quantity remaining. So that is the table state by quantity remaining, which we can then use this to generate a chart for report purpose. Insert a chart. Let's go with another type of chart. Let's go with another type of chart. Okay, let's go with a pie chart. Let's go with a pie chart. So let's say okay. So there we have our chart representation for the data under question. So we have our state separated in colors, which also shows us the quantity. So we can see the state with the chunk of quantity remaining unsold, which is the highest. And then we see other states as well and their percentage of quantity remaining in them. and we see color that is used to represent each state for easy identification. So guys, that is how we can use pivot table to create a simple table for simple data presentation. In our next class, we will look at how we can use pivot table further for more process. See you in the next class.